Three, two, one.
Warning. This show is about the return of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. If you are easily offended by the truth, then you need to keep listening. His return is drawing near.
SmokeHouseStudios.net. The Front Porch Show. A unique blend of current events and what they might mean. Humbly seen through the eyes of God's Word, the Bible, in an old school front porch discussion with occasional guests, your input, and a guiding hand through Christ. Broadcasting from atop the front porch, it's SmokeHouseStudios.net's The Front Porch Show. Now, carefully blending your smoke goodness in each and every soundbite. Your host, Smokehouse.
Hello, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, friends, wherever you may be across the globe and across the United States. Yo, Smokehouse with you here. SmokeHouseStudios.net Front Porch Show out here on this April the 12th, 2025. And man, what a week it has been. And I want to apologize for not being with you last week. I have had all kind of irons in the fire, and it just fell in my lap that last weekend. So I did put up a message from brother David Gibb, and I hope you were able to hear it. It's called Ask. Man, it's a powerful message, and I actually had to use that message this week. So I'm a witness that it works. And but we're back to you this weekend. Glad to be here, and we have by request. Man, y'all have been wearing me out, wanting to know when this young man's going to be back on, and we have him on tonight from the channel Why Try Blaze. Brother David Heath, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, man. It's great to be back. I'm glad people enjoyed my presence and what I had to say. Genuinely, thank you guys.
Yeah, they did. I was sharing some messages with you, and they were like, "Man, you two have a great rapport." And so David and I have been talking about we're going to kind of make this a routine thing, not every week, but David, what sort of things are you wanting to discuss this day?
So today, the thing that I've got on my plate, on my agenda, that I really want everybody to hear about is tariffs, and specifically not only the tariffs and how they're being applied today, but also biblically and things that we could also tie in and kind of give an image for you guys on what we think is going on in the world today. So if we're going to talk about the tariffs, we're going to have to start from the very beginning, right? Before Trump got into office this term. So you want to go ahead and finish your introduction before I get going on that? Because it'll probably be a little bit of a lengthy segment right there.
Okay, that sounds good because I want you to pay close attention to this because David has been following this. I haven't really been following the tariffs as much as I have followed everything else that's happening this week. But let me set the stage for you. David and I, a few days ago, we were talking about this show and what we were going to do to put it together. And as we were discussing tariffs, I'm like, man, that sounds just like Haggai. You know, I've shared Haggai several times on the program, but to the new listeners, Haggai was a prophet that was sent to Israel to warn the people of what their issue was that they were having. But it's specific to exactly the parallel that we're dealing with today in our society, and it fits so well with these tariffs. So let me set the groundwork. Haggai only has 2 chapters. I'm going to paraphrase chapter 1 as the open, and we'll save chapter 2 to the last at the end of the show because that's when he was prophesying to a latter house, a later day. So the children of Israel were in bondage in Babylon, and God had anointed King Cyrus to be the one to go in and bust them out of Babylon and send them back to Israel to free them. And Ezra, the prophet Ezra, had come to King Cyrus shortly before he released them, and he needed two people to go back with him to Israel and get Israel's land ready to receive all of these that will be exiled back to Israel. So one of the people that were chosen was Zerubbabel, and he was of the royal line, and he was the one appointed by actual King Cyrus to be the governor of this. And Zerubbabel and Jeshua, they returned the children of Israel back to Israel from their bondage. Now, upon arriving, they had to begin and start building God's temple. And of course, worshiping God and thanking God for them being rescued from this bondage. I don't know how many years had transpired, but throughout these years, they were abundant. They had crops, and they were also building on their houses and building their businesses. But some years had passed, and they began to start slacking on the temple. It wasn't quite finished yet, and they were putting more effort, more time, and more money into their own houses and kind of neglecting God in a way. And it got to a point to where, listen close, because this sounds like us today. They had sown much and had reaped little. Their money had ran out of the bag as quickly as they were putting the money in it. A drought had come across the land, and the reason for it was to be found that it was due to the direct neglect of the temple. So, you know, how frequent do we look at our disasters today? If we look at our losses of business that arise out of our failures, do we remember God's cause? Have we forgotten our first love? Are we building on our houses in our lives more than we are trying to worship and build God's house? I mean, we say that we have not the time, that we cannot afford the money, and see no necessity for setting apart the Lord's day or the daily period for meditation and prayer. Did we see things as they really are? I mean, we should find that this is a false economy if we do not recognize the true one that is making this all happen. And at the close of the show, we're going to understand why, because God tells us there that He owns the gold, He owns the silver, He owns it all. So if we expect to get it, we need to get it through Him, not through man, right? So there's an old saying in this that says, "There is that which withholdeth more than is meant, but it tendeth to poverty," which means we have to be cautious as to what we withhold. We have to be aware of who is really in charge. A more modern analogy of that is the mower does not waste time when he stops to sharpen his blade. Let me repeat that. The mower does not waste time when he stops to sharpen his blade. I mean, in this analogy, God is the blade. God is the one that's doing the real work. Okay? We're out there in a physical realm pushing this mower, trying to mow our grass. And today, our grass being that of our finances, child's college, whatever, our jobs, our homes, everything, right? But it is the blade that is of most importance. And if we do not take time out to sharpen that blade from time to time, meaning to get back with God and to seek God's counsel, that He is the one that's really in charge of all of this. If we just keep trying to build our own houses without sharpening our blade, we're going to be working harder and harder and harder and yielding less and less and less. And so in Haggai 1, that's basically what it was. Haggai was a prophet that was sent in to tell these people, look, you need to quit focusing on what's at hand in your personal lives, and you need to focus more on God. And I do believe in Biden's term, David, we began to start seeing these very things. Okay. We had sown much and we had reaped little. Our money ran out of our bag as quickly as we were putting it in. All of these things were taking place. But then we had this campaign with Trump where he was attempted to be assassinated twice, possibly a third time. A lot of things happened not only in his lives but ours that humbled us. I know it humbled Trump. He has begun to start speaking God and Jesus more prevalent now in this second term, and we're starting to see this transition into something great. Although on the forefront it looks kind of bad, which is going to lead us into these tariffs, but he keeps talking of a greater day, a better time, which that will come at the end of the show when we go over Haggai chapter 2. So David, that's where we are, brother. The mower does not waste time when he stops to sharpen his blade. And in the tariff analogy, this is part of sharpening a blade, is it not?
Absolutely. And before I even get going on my part, man, that was a beautiful analogy. Man, that was really, really good. Because, like you said, that's accurate, 100% accurate. It kind of gave me chills a little bit. Um, but so I want to tie in everything that what you just said into what I've got going on with the tariffs. And you actually said something that I just made a note of that I want to actually touch on that I think everybody listening for the most part is going to agree with me on. You talked about uh, in the story people attending to their own temples. They're not. Stopped building the temple of God to build their own temples. Well, if we're going to get into the tariff situation, we could point directly at the beginning of, even before Trump's administration, NAFTA. Okay. Now, I'm sure a bunch of you know about NAFTA. Um, but if we're going to talk about people building their own temples instead of the temple of, in this case, in the real world scenario, it would be the people of the government. That would be the real temple that they're supposed to attend to. However, um, when NAFTA came around, you had people start building their own temples, aka money laundering. Okay, instead of taking money that is going to go back into the people of the government, into the people of the government that actually elected them, they are going to put it in their own bank accounts. Um, so I just wanted to start with that, and like I said, the thing with the blade is beautiful. It gave me chills. I'm kind of coming back from that a little bit because man, that was powerful.
That was good, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Okay, so touching back on NAFTA. So NAFTA was gotten rid of in 2020 by Donald Trump. Okay, and they signed a new agreement called the USMCA. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but the USMCA agreement is actually going to end next year. Okay, so we're not even going to touch on the China deficit. We're not going to touch on Canada or Mexico's response yet. Just off of that alone, Trump knows that the deal is expiring in next year. So part of what he is doing is leverage to create a new fairer trade agreement. And to be honest with you, I think Donald Trump probably knew that in 2020 when he signed it. I think he expected to win the election and not have everything with Biden happen like it did, because we all know that the economy was not good during Biden's term. Um, so he 100%, I think, expected to win the election and was going to use the leverage during that presidency and going forward. But now, at this point, with these tariffs, the more companies that come into the United States, not only to produce goods for people to buy here, but also to export, that gives us a much better seat at the table when it comes to negotiating tariffs or even zero tariffs. Because what people don't understand is 2.6% of our entire GDP last year were exports. I want everybody to know that. And I'm going to repeat that number. 2.6% of our entire GDP last year were exports. That means we're a country of imports. We understand that. Most people listening, I'm sure, understand that. And Trump wants to change that. Everything that he's doing right now is essentially to change that, to give us financial independency so we don't have to rely on China anymore. Um, do you want to respond to that at all, Greg, or you want me to just keep on going?
No, I agree with you there. I mean, you're on a roll. Just keep it going.
All right. So, on that note, we all remember what Trump's original problem with the tariffs were. They were unfair. The United States was being taken advantage of on a global scale, even though we were giving all these countries money by buying their imports. Mexico, 78% of their entire GDP exports, we bought. 78%. We were the by far largest consumer slash customer of Mexico last year. In Canada, 25% of their entire GDP exports came to us. Um, so this is something, when I'm giving you these numbers on importing versus exporting, I think everybody can understand that the United States was getting screwed because we didn't have these factory jobs. We weren't creating these things that before NAFTA were here. All these companies left because we essentially gave them the incentive to make it cheaper to go overseas and let us buy and import, which we have seen is not a viable strategy. And it's part of the reason why we have been $1 to $2 trillion into debt further into China every single year. Now, we can all agree that we didn't vote for Donald Trump because his name is Donald Trump, right? We voted for Donald Trump because he was speaking to the middle class. He was speaking to the people who at one point could afford life on a, 18, 20 an hour job making somewhat overtime. You can't do that anymore. It's not viable. Almost any place in the country, you can't do that anymore. So he spoke directly to the hearts of the people who felt like they've been taken advantage of because the politicians are making their own pockets fatter. Okay, so I hope I'm putting this in a circle for you guys to understand the biblical analogy and how it ties into the real world events that are going on. Because, like I said, we're going to circle back to the temples, people lining up their own pockets, aka temples, and stealing from the temple of God, aka in this real world scenario, the government slash the people who voted for them. So going forward, we've seen the tariff war that has been going on with China. Now, China's biggest problem is they understand that they have the United States in a foothold. They understand that they've got us where they want us, right? Their economy will continue to grow off of the backs of the United States citizens. And now that we are becoming financially independent, that's why they are doing these reciprocal tariffs. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys, the reason we will end up winning this tariff war is because we imported so much. We are a huge customer for China. We are an irreplaceable market. People want to say that they're going to find new buyers and other countries are going to buy their rare earth metals and such. Sure, a little bit, maybe, but nobody will replace the United States as a customer. Absolutely nobody. And China knows that, and so does Trump. And this goes back into the USMCA deal expiring in 2026 because Trump understands the more financially independent we are when we have that conversation and we have a seat at that table, by far we have more leverage than everybody else sitting at that table. And I also want to circle back on Canada, okay? Canada and Mexico. Originally, it started with Canada and Mexico as the two biggest people griping and complaining about the tariffs, and they were kind of originally the targets of the tariffs, Canada more specifically. And I don't have the numbers of before Donald Trump came into office. I believe it was 10% to 2% was the tariff difference, which is a big difference. It doesn't sound like it compared to these 100% tariffs that we're hearing right now, but that is a big difference. And essentially, what Trump said was, I'm going to give you a reciprocal tariff. I'm going to match the tariff that you give to the United States. We might even extend it a little bit, but for the most part, we're going to match it. And how did Canada respond? Canada responded by threatening, and I'm pretty sure they did, cut off power to 1.5 million Americans that were along the Canadian border. Does that sound like leadership to you? Not to me. Um, and for Mexico, what Donald Trump wanted Mexico to do was help stop the fight with the fentanyl crisis, with drug trafficking, and also human trafficking. Those were the things that he said. Look, if you want to get out of these tariffs, this is what you have to do. And originally, the Mexican president agreed. She said, "Yes, we will do this." However, I believe it was a month later, Trump said, "No, we're putting more tariffs on you guys because you refuse to uphold your end of the bargain." And at the same time, he made the Mexican cartels a national terrorist organization, and she did not appreciate that at all. And I'm just going to tell you guys, I'm almost positive she was probably getting a kickback from that. We don't know, and this is not me telling you 100% for sure. This is my opinion. I would not be surprised if she was getting kickbacks from that, and that's part of why she fought so hard. But at the end of the day, they are a terrorist organization, and they should be labeled as such. And I don't want to get too far into that, but it goes to show that when Donald Trump stands up for the United States and he doesn't allow the rest of the country to bully us and to make us feel like we have to pay the rest of the world's bills, they throw a hissy fit because they realize we've been paying their bills for far too long and they can't do it without us. And I think Donald Trump knows that. And some people might want to say that these tariffs are a little bit heavy. They're a little bit, they're scary. There's a chance that we go into a recession. Um, there might be a slight chance that we go into a recession for a small amount of time. But what people need to understand is when you go to the grocery store, when you go to the parts store, you have an option between the American product and the Chinese product. Not always. Sometimes they only have the Chinese product. But for the most part, you'll have a choice between an American product and the Chinese product. The quicker people start buying American made products and stop sending money to China by buying Chinese made products, the faster we will recover. And that's what I wish people would understand is part of the reason that we have gotten into this deficit is because we have been allowing all these countries to send us so many imports and they get a huge chunk out of that. The United States only gets a portion out of all the purchases. The majority of it is going back to that other country. So we're making other countries richer. And it's unfortunate that we're going to have to go through a little bit of a hard time because it probably will for a short amount of time. But if you have faith and stick it through, like Donald Trump has said, there will be greatness. There will be light at the end of the tunnel. And like Greg said earlier, we will reap what we sow. Right now, we are sowing, okay? And sometimes the sowing, it's not fun, okay? But we will reap what we sow. And we also have to keep in mind that the Lord, if you pray and keep him in mind, hopefully will keep us blessed and stay strong and don't lose faith, essentially.
Yeah, and that kind of draws us back to what we had discussed the other day as we were discussing this. In Joel 2:25, Joel, through the word of God, said, I will repay you for the years that the locusts have eaten. Now, it's not necessarily meaning the actual locust, eating crops. Locust, of course, here is an analogy. Locust being that of a creeping thing, something that comes in to devour and destroy. So, locust in this are these ones that are taking advantage of NAFTA, taking advantage, of these deals with these other countries have made under these corrupt administrations. The Lord said, I will repay you for the years the locust have eaten. And he goes on further into that to say, mentioning all these other type of worms that decay and destroy and do the same thing. One of the worms, strangely, that was mentioned was the polymer worm. And the polymer worm being specifically mentioned as one of the worms in that passage, that worm is only indigenous to the United States and nowhere else. So it's interesting how when God says, I will repay you for the years that the locust have eaten, he referenced a worm that was solely only indigenous to the United States. But you're right, because Trump had claimed that if China didn't play along with his plan, it would be better for the United States because manufacturing would soar once again for the American people. But, and we're actually starting to see that happening. We have companies now making deals to come back to the United States. It's very hard, really, to buy anything outside of China back the way it was. So, what can you do? It's easy. I drop a 25% tax on China. We're going to tax you 25%. Blah, blah, blah. Now, here's where people's having the problem, David. We're not looking toward the future. We're not. Oh, we are. Let me rephrase that. I know we are, and the people on our show are, but those in general aren't really focused on the future. They are conditioned to follow patterns of the past because in 2016 this was kind of unthinkable that it's like 4 years ago that it's impossible. China is going to eclipse the United States as this great economic power, and we're going to be second. And if you would have said that 10 years ago, people would have laughed at you. I mean, literally laughed. So China is going to eclipse us in 4 years. Well, under the Trump doctrine, that does not happen. And just like David has said, it's because we're going to start making our own products. We're not going to let them be made in China. And if they are, they're going to pay a heavy price. Now, Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful, if y'all watch the Shark Tank, he was on with Fox News. Now, David, this is interesting because you and I, we're not privy to the degree of money these people have and the access in the things that they're involved in. So I didn't even know half of this. Once he brought it to light, it made sense. But check out what he said. He is for 1,000%
Oh,
tariff on China. Check this out.
Hey, Kevin, what's your reaction to this now? I guess when they went over the math, it's not 125%, it's 145%, the U.S. tariffs on Chinese goods.
I've been an advocate for raising it to 400% in one move to force Xi to the table because this narrative with China is not just about tariffs. Since China joined the WTO in 2020, or it's actually 2000, they have not abided by the rules in any single year. There is no way you can figure out or settle a trade dispute with them. Although they said they'd agree to do that, they never did. They have been constantly stealing American IP, including many from my companies. We have not been able to litigate there. There is no resolution available to us. They are using our financial markets. I have to compete with Chinese companies that don't abide by GAAP, listing on NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange for investors' dollars, and I am forced to comply, and they're not. They're allowed to use our legal system to sue me here in the United States. I can't do the same in China. So I'm just one hand. I put up my hand. I was testifying yesterday at the China hearings in Washington, and I said I've had enough. And I expect you, lawmakers and the administration, to finally go to task and settle this once and for all, because I don't care if it's 1,000% tariffs. They have to come to the table now and not just settle this trade war. They need to settle all of this unbalanced situation.
See, I didn't even consider the things like that. Did you, Dave?
no. Well, sort of. When he's talking about not having a seat at the table when it comes to their court, I sort of understand that. But as far as, like you said, we don't have the money that these guys have. So, no, we're not privy to the inside information like he just gave us there.
And it's like the rules and regulations that they don't have to follow, but yet we do. And they can sue us over here under our legal system, but we cannot sue them over there. See, those type of things I hadn't even considered yet.
Well, and that goes back into the, communism, right? They make the rules. They decide who wins the I believe it's something like the Chinese government has won 99% of all lawsuits that's ever gone through the Chinese court. If it's the Chinese government versus somebody, 99% of the time 99% of the time the Chinese government wins.
Right. Well, I can once he laid it out in layman's terms, I can see it because it's kind of like the American DOT. We have we have rules and regulations that we have to follow, but Mexico, then when they bring their trucks over there, they're supposedly quote unquote supposed to follow our rules, but we know they don't,
Right.
and they get away with it. Now we've got an administration though that's putting a stop to that. But under however many years now, that's the way it's always been. So once he laid it out in kind of that aspect, I started understanding, wow, I never even saw it like that. So yes, this is why there is such an importance on a heavy tariff on China to try to get them reined in under this even trade blanket that we're trying to establish here in the United States.
And I've actually got here a list of investments, in case anybody's interested to hear. And I actually want to bring up a specific one that is really interesting to me because this one single investment that Trump secured, I believe, a month after he was signed into office, this single investment was larger than the entirety of all investments that the Biden administration had during his 4-year presidency. I want you guys to really hear what I'm saying. One deal with one country, one company was big enough to supersede the entirety of what Joe Biden did during his presidency. Okay, so this investment that I'm speaking of is the United Arab Emirates. Okay, after a meeting with Trump, the United Arab Emirates committed to a 10-year, $1.4 trillion agreement with the U.S. that will sustain existing investments in AI infrastructure, semiconductors, energy, and American manufacturing, according to Reuters. So I've got that for you guys, and I've actually got more here. And I won't read them all off to you because it's sort of a long list, which is a great thing. Don't get me wrong. But the totality of all these investments together is over $2 trillion. Okay. I believe Biden only got to 900 billion, okay, during his entire 4-year presidency. Other notable ones that I'm just going to point out real quick off the cuff, Johnson & Johnson, 55 billion over the next 4 years. SoftBank, they said 100 billion over the next 4 years, and they promised to create 100,000 jobs focused on artificial intelligence and related infrastructure. Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, $100 billion into U.S. operations, and they're actually going to open up a plant in Phoenix that's going to total, with everything, to 165 billion. And let's see, OpenAI, Oracle, and SoftBank, all of that is 500 billion. Apple, most of you probably remember that announcement. They announced a $500 billion investment. And NVIDIA, let's see, they didn't specify amount, but they said hundreds of billions of dollars over the next 4 years. So that's a couple investments that Donald Trump has secured already for us. And look, I know we talked about recession and everything, but guys, this is great stuff. And this is really what helps your economy. And this is really what gets housing prices more under control, because we understand the economy and housing prices took off at the same time. And people like me that are in my age bracket that want to own a home, I love seeing stuff like this. And ultimately, this is one of the big reasons why we voted for Trump, right?
Well, exactly. And I want to take you back to 2012. Now, folks, you have to understand, Trump didn't officially throw his hat in the ring till 2015, I believe it was. So this was 3 years before Trump threw his hat in the ring the first time. And he was asked about China then. Now, listen to what he had stated, because this has been the focus of him both terms, okay? This is the focus and the direction that he has for the United States.
But I'll tell you something. When they really believe it, when they don't have Obama bowing to the king of Saudi Arabia, bow down. Remember that one? Does everybody remember that? Remember, they're all screaming, drop to your knees, drop to your knees. So when we don't have Obama having all these state dinners and everything, when we have somebody that's real and tough and smart and sane, I'm saying smart, they're going to give us anything they want. Because, you know, the IMF, did you see the International Monetary Fund? They came out with a statement last week that this is unheard of. This is unthinkable. That in 2016, that's in like 4 years, China is going to eclipse the United States as a great economic power. We're going to be in second. And if you would have said that 10 years ago, if you would have said that during the time of the late, great Ronald Reagan, people would have laughed at you. They would have laughed. So China's going to eclipse us in 4 years. Now, under the Trump doctrine, that doesn't happen. You know why? Because we're going to start making our own products. We're not going to let them made in China. You know, when you go to China and you want to sell stuff in China, they make you build a plant and they take all your technology and they pirate everything you have. Look at the deal that General Electric made. They gave up all of this high technology in order to go there. They had to build factories. When the Chinese sell to us, oh, just come on in, folks, we'll pay you whatever. We are so stupid. It's unbelievable. So under the Trump doctrine, it doesn't work that way. It's fellas, we love you very much. You want to sell to us? Build your plant in Alabama. Build your plant in Nevada. Build your plant wherever the hell you want it. But you're not bringing in all your crap, including your rotted sheetrock that's making everybody sick. Let me tell you something. The other thing is we make a much better product. But you can't compete price-wise because of the manipulation. So one of two things is going to happen, and I hope it's the second. The first is they stop screwing around, but the second is they don't. So here's what happened. About 60% of their sales will stop. We will increase the hell out of employment. We'll be building plants. I saw one the other day, a fantastic Wilcox, a fantastic plant yesterday in New Hampshire. We will start building, they make weaponry, most incredible plants. I didn't even know we had anything like that anymore because everything's made in other countries. Unbelievable. And this is high technology stuff. Incredible. Wilcox, look it up. Great. And I don't even have a piece of the company. I wish I did. But they make their own products. But you'll have thousands of those places once you do that. So they'll behave. But if they don't behave, that's even better for us because we're going to start building our own plants. And we'll tell Apple and we'll tell all these other companies, you got to build your own factories. I'm sorry, you can't make it over there. We got to put our own people to work.
Okay, I agree with that. And hearing that from 2012, you know, we always say every time Trump says something, give it 6 months and it'll be true. Man, he was saying some of the specific things were they make you build your plant over there in China if you want to sell something out of China, and then they rob your technology, they rob all of and that's exactly what Kevin O'Leary had said in that clip that we had played, man, that they hijack all of the technology that he has literally dealt with himself. And so just by what Kevin Leary said the other day, he validated what Trump said back in 2012. Unbelievable, man.
Yeah, and is this really somebody that we think we want to owe $33 trillion to?
Well, exactly. That in China buying up all the land over here, it's been speculated that when it comes time for the bill to be paid, if we can't pay it, they'll take the land that they own, you know?
Well, and the governor of New York actually had a Chinese government spy that had been working for her for 20 years that was arrested for espionage. You guys should look that up. If I wish I knew her name, but I don't. But you should go find that out if you don't know that. Her name, the governor of New York, is Kathy Hochul, and she like I said, I believe it was an advisor for about 20 years who was actually a member of the Chinese parliament and was like an agent essentially for the Chinese
Well,
government.
we had old Swalwell. He was messing around with that Chinese gal. What was her name? Fing Fing or Fee Fee?
Something like that.
And he had an affair with her. And then we had a Chinese spy that was a chauffeur for Dianne Feinstein for
Hmm.
like 20 years, man.
Yep.
So, yeah,
And while you were playing that clip, I actually made a note that I wanted to touch on because I'm sure a lot of people will also share this sentiment with me who are listening. Um, Everything that Trump just said, these are the same things that people like Elizabeth Warren, Chuck Schumer, and Nancy Pelosi, hell, even Obama, before he got into office, these are all things that they were saying and agreeing. Not only that, but they were also talking about on waste in the government, wasteful spending, and now we have to cut back on it. And I want to spin this back around, guys, because it's very relevant to what we're dealing with today. People building their own temples instead of the temples that they were assigned to take care of and build. Essentially, temple being their wallet, their pocketbook, aligning with Chinese nationals who are going to make them rich. Um, so I just want to throw that out there for you guys. It's biblical, but it's also real world because it's happening. It's happening today.
it is. And to kind of preface what David had said, here we have that exact thing with these elites. But when it trickles down to us, what are we doing? We are out there now in a taller grass because they are robbing from us and they are padding their pockets. And of course, they're in no way serving God. But but us here on the smaller platform, when we are trying to serve God, that causes our grass to grow taller, which means our blade needs to be sharper in order to accomplish what we're setting out to do. And we ourselves are more focused on, oh my gosh, now look at this inflation. Look at this. I can't pay that bill. And instead of taking the time to sharpen the blade, we try to rev the RPMs up higher on that motor and run faster through that grass. And when you do that, especially with a dull blade, you're not even cutting grass anymore. You're just kind of hacking at it and folding it down. And so what we need to do as the peasant right now, we need to take the time to sharpen our blade, folks. And our blade is God. And he has made it plain that the only way to do this is to quit worrying about our temples, our personal temples, and we need to start rebuilding the house of God. So I think Haggai had it spot on, David.
I agree with you. I agree with you. Man, it still gives me chills when I think about that analogy. That's beautiful.
Well, I appreciate it. Well, Trump was in the Oval Office the other day and he was mentioning a secret weapon. Now, he didn't state what that weapon was at all. And is he talking about a military weapon or is he talking about something involving these tariffs? I don't know, but listen to what he said.
And we're very powerful. This country is very powerful. Let me tell you, it's far more powerful than people understand. We have weaponry that nobody has any idea what it is, and it is the most powerful weapons in the world that we have. More powerful than anybody, even not even close. So nobody's going to do that. But I think that if that's what you're referring to, maybe it's not. But just
He's always said he's never going to tell the enemy what he's doing. So is he talking about, I assume he's talking about military weapons, but the way Trump is, man, he'll say two or three things that he's meaning out of one statement. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, and I think he likes to stir the pot a little bit because think about how hard the other side has messed with him so much, even before the first term, but now before this term. I mean, we all know what they did. They tried to essentially get rid of him physically and also throw him under the prison. None of it worked. They threw everything that they had at this man, and at this point, I think he like the Greenland thing. Okay, obviously we would benefit from owning Greenland. I mean, that would be a huge asset to us. But at the end of the day, does Trump really want to go take Greenland, or is he just saying things because he knows that the opposition is just going to run with it wild, and they're just going to go crazy with it because they've lost their minds? And I think this is along the same. I think he's talking about physical weapons, yes, and trust me, I believe that, like, people say that Hollywood shows you things that the government has. They just kind of, give you little bits and pieces of it, dude. I think when Men in Black came out, that technology is probably 100% real in my mind. So I don't think he is stretching the truth to say that we have weapons that people can't even comprehend that we own. I think he's right. But I also think he's talking about mental weapons, such as the fact that the entire world is on standstill watching Donald Trump right now. Everybody is on their tippy toes, and they've got both hands on the wall behind them for support, watching what Donald Trump is going to do. And he knows it. Um, and we all know Donald Trump is a bit of a showman, right? So he's enjoying it a little bit. I think that's what this is. And he's also saying to these countries, I don't know if you want to get into this today, but the situation that we have going on with Iran, he's essentially telling all these foreign nations, hey, y'all have been poking the bear for a long time, and the bear has remained calm and not struck back, but the bear is fixing to strike back, and you got one or two more pokes left in you before the bear strikes back. I think it's all mixed into one thing. The fact that Donald Trump is putting the United States first, and he's not letting us get bullied anymore. I think that's essentially what it all boils down to.
It does, and I was going to say this to the end of the show, but man, David, you was spot on because I want to go ahead and go into Haggai 2 in these few verses here because that is exactly what he's saying, what you said. Um, Again, in Haggai 2, he's talking about a latter house, a latter time. In this aspect, the last days or the end of the age, there's going to be people that's going to be emulating exactly what the people of Judah was doing there, focusing on their houses and neglecting the house of God. And in this latter house, Haggai prophesies the words of the Lord to warn this latter house, the latter time. It says in verse 6, "For thus saith the Lord of hosts, yet once it is a little while, and I will shake the heavens, I will shake the earth and the sea and the dry land, and I will shake up all nations, and the desire of all nations shall come, and I will fill this house with glory, saith the Lord of hosts." He says, "The silver is mine, the gold is mine, saith the Lord of hosts, and the glory of this latter house, the times and the latter times, shall be greater than of the former, saith the Lord of hosts. And this place will I give peace, saith the Lord of hosts." So, what he's saying here, basically, in this latter house, when they're doing the same thing, the Lord is going to intervene and he's going to shake the heavens, he's going to shake the earth, he's going to shake the dry lands, he's going to shake up all nations, right? And man, what have we been seeing basically after Trump's first term? Man, we have started seeing nations shake. We have been seeing the heavens shake with all of these eclipses, and we're seeing the earth shake with these massive earthquakes we've been seeing, with these massive floods and hurricanes that's flooding places that don't even have hurricanes. We're seeing the oceans rocking and rolling. Even the dry lands in places are flooding. Those are being shaken. All nations are being shaken up with these tariffs. And it says that the desire of all of these nations shall come, and I will fill the house with glory, saith the Lord of hosts. And when it says with glory, that's glorious, good sense, that's honor, that's splendor. It's what the Hebrew word is, kabadud, is with glory. And God said that all of these things are His, man, the silver, the gold, and all of that. And anyway, this glory is going to be restored. What have we been hearing now in this second term, David? We've been hearing that exact same thing, that we're going to have to shake up all of these nations with these tariffs. We're going to have to shake up all of these things in order to get it fixed. We got to shake it up. But there is a glory coming. There is a good day coming. There is a great America that is coming. And so I'll just share that part of Haggai 2 and then say the rest for last. But man, you were spot on when you said that, because that is the prophecy of the latter house there, Dave.
Yeah, and you're talking about like, the physical things that we can see, the storms, the weather, and everything like that. And that's all 100% true. And the other side of it is like the economic side. What Donald Trump is doing is essentially shaking up the entire economy, shaking up the way we're going to go forward. Everything Trump is doing right now is setting the precedent for the way the United States is going to invest and spend their money. And, forever we have talked about how are we going to get out of this debt with China? How are we going to do it other than straight up going to war or forgiveness? Neither of which is a pretty much viable option. This is our way out. And we could essentially pay China back, which I know $33 trillion in China's pocket sounds a little scary, but it would be the right thing to do because essentially we accrued that debt and we have to pay that debt. We would not have to carry the conscience of we had to go to war and send our sons and daughters to fight a debt, a money debt essentially, and we didn't have to get bailed out by China, which some people might not say is a bad thing, but it might not also be very considered a honorary thing to do. The honorary thing to do would be pay your debt. And essentially we are a Christian nation, so we pay the debt that we accrued and we move forward. And essentially that's what Donald Trump is trying to do here. He's trying to shake up how we do things right now and going forward and introduce true investment into the United States and the people that live here, you and me.
Well, I'm gonna dovetail what you just said. When you was on last time, we was talking about Matthew 16, where Christ warned the people about the leaven of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. Uh, when the disciples were low on food and they didn't bring any food and they had just fed the multitude, Christ said, "You don't worry about your food. You worry about the leaven of the Pharisees and the Sadducees." Now, the Pharisees and the Sadducees in Christ's day were the spiritual leaders, were the ones that knew the law. It was their congressmen, their governors, and all of that, right? And and Christ said, "Don't worry about the food, man. You worry about the leaven of these corrupt individuals." And the Hebrew word or the Greek word for leaven is that which is fermented, that which is rotten, that which causes to rise up. And so what he was telling them is, because he called them directly hypocrites. He said, "Ye hypocrites," when they were requesting a sign from Jesus. All right. He said, "Ye hypocrites." And basically, what Christ told us was, these officials, they're hypocrites, and you beware of their fermentation. You beware of their rottenness and what they cause to rise up. And in this quote unquote heaven shaking and say a parallel to the prophecy of Haggai, that's what we're seeing. Now that's being exposed. The Bible says everything done in the darkness will be shown in the light. Everything that is hidden will be seen, okay? And with Doge, which we'll get into in the latest here in just a moment, a lot of these things are being exposed. And it's interesting to me that now that Dan Bongino is the assistant director to the FBI, he put out a tweet the other day, David, and I don't have it, but it says something on the premise: just because you're not seeing things happening in public does not mean that they're not happening behind the scenes. And that led me to something interesting, because there are several governors. You mentioned one, Kathy Hochul. Kathy Hochul was one. all of these corrupt Gavin Newsom's another, but we have this Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan who hated Trump with a vengeance, right? Well, this week, man, she came out in support of Trump. Trump's already told us we got it all. He said that in the first term. We've called them all. We got it all. And this week, man, Gretchen Whitmer, as Trump ordered Pam Bondi to investigate the law firm who represented the Dominion in their 2020 election defamation case, Gretchen Whitmer is in the Oval Office looking extremely uncomfortable. She was there when Trump did the whole press conference and ordered Pam Bondi to do all this. And Gretchen Whitmer, you ought to see the picture. She was like deer in the headlights. And then later that day, she began speaking favorably about Trump's tariffs. When has she ever spoken favorably about Trump's tariffs? And man, this is what she said. If let's see, where's it at? Whitmer. Here we go.
Behind the tariffs. And I can tell you, here's where President Trump and I do agree. We do need to make more stuff in America. More cars and chips, more steel and ships. We do need fair trade.
She's out there standing with Trump, man. It was almost like an about face. And I want to get to this 2020 election, this investigation that Trump has had Pam Bondi get started. Now, David, where were you at the Christmas that the bomb went off in Nashville?
I was actually in Pulaski, Tennessee. I was out in the boonies. We around Christmas time, my family, we go out to family property that different people in my family. We just go out there and just stay out there, and that's where we were. And I actually didn't have any cash at the time, and we went into town, and my card would not work anywhere. I couldn't go to the ATM and get cash. I couldn't go to the store and pay with my card. I was kind of SOL. I was glad that the other people had cash that I was with.
Well, I was just woke up that morning, and I was doing my morning routine. We won't go into detail. And I was scrolling through Facebook when I was doing that. It was Christmas morning. Sun hadn't even come up yet. And you know how you hear like distant thunder, like just a low rumble. You really can't hear it, but you can kind of hear it and kind of feel it a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
Sure, right.
Well, that's what I thought it was. It didn't throw any alarms, but it was enough to be like, man, it's like 20 something degrees. Is it going to rain? You know? And as I continue to scroll through Facebook, I start seeing these videos of water draining through ceilings and mirrors busted and bathroom counters laying on the ground and drywall cracked. And I'm thinking, and it ain't just one post, man. It's several of them. I'm thinking, well, where is this at? We have an earthquake or something? And then one of the videos showed Lower Broad. I was like, hey, man, that's Nashville. So I'm searching for the date, to see when that was posted. And it was posted like 5 minutes ago. And I'm thinking, what's going on? And then I realized that there has been an explosion in Nashville. And I'm a ham radio operator. I'm part of the emergency services. And so we have a emergency ham radio statewide kind of deal. And I jumped on the radio, and we had hams on the ground that were giving detailed reports. And I won't go into detail on the show, but here's what I will say. Everything that we were hearing on the news from start to finish is not what was really going on at the reports that I was hearing, period, end of discussion. And the hams were in control of the information until the FBI stepped in and ran everybody out. But anyway, I told you all that to tell you this. If y'all remember, directly after the election happened and we had Powell, what's her first name? I want to say Samantha. It's not Samantha, but the attorney Powell. Sidney Powell.
Okay.
Sidney. We had the attorney Sidney Powell out there talking about how she and they had gotten the courts to give her at least 10 of the voting machines out of Fulton County, Georgia. And she was in an interview and they were asking her, well, how are you forensically going to be able to go through and do all of this? And in that interview, she said, strangely enough, there are two places in that general area that has the technology to be able to do that. She says one is the communication hub in Nashville, Tennessee, and the other is up at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, at the base, right?
Hmm.
All right. Well, that was about a week or two before the bomb goes off, and maybe 3 weeks before the bomb went off in Nashville when she was given that report. And strangely enough, it just happened to be the communication center in Nashville that she had mentioned in her little interview. Well, later on, as you know, David, we have homeless that live down there. Um, they were interviewing, the citizen reporters were interviewing the homeless that live down there. And they said, it's the strangest thing. And David, that building down there, they keep it boarded up like it's about to fall in. And they keep the front doors boarded up. So one of the homeless that lived down there said it was the strangest thing. They never deliver anything to the front doors. Never. If anything goes into that building, it goes in another way. They never deliver anything in the front doors. And he said, I don't know how much time before the bomb had gone off. I think it was a few days, maybe a week, that a straight truck had pulled up and they had pulled down the drywall and they started moving boxes into the front door down into the basement. And that kind of got me thinking because it stood out in his mind. So, we're thinking, well, were they placing explosives in there or, and then later, and I forget what interview that I had heard. It was, gosh, I wish I could remember who stated this, but those voting machines that were moved from Fulton County, it was alleged they were placed in a four-wheeled vehicle while they put empty boxes in a straight truck. And the straight truck came up to Nashville with the empty boxes and unloaded the empty boxes into the basement of this when the real voting machines that were in the car went on to Fort Campbell. So it was alleged that Trump had a decoy truck deliver empty boxes to the data center, and then how convenient a few weeks later it blows up, right?
Wow.
So I said all that to get into this. All of these governors, Gretchen Whitmer, Kathy Hochul, well, back then it was the other fella, but they were all in on this. I'm having issue right now, David, because my license are coming up for review, and now everybody, at least in Tennessee, by the end of May, has to have this real ID. Have you gotten the real ID yet?
I'm gonna be honest, I know nothing about it.
Well, what it is, in order to fly in an airplane or enter a federal building or anything, you have to have this star on your license, which is the real ID. And in order to get that star on your license, you have to take documentation down to the license bureau and they verify it and then they put that star on your license. Now, what makes this important is there's only one way you can get this real ID, and that is if you are an American citizen. Are you picking up what I'm putting down?
Right.
Okay. Everybody's got to have this real ID, or you don't get to fly, you don't get to go into federal buildings. And listen to what Trump is doing now.
It's going to be something, and I'm actually looking forward to the midterms. I really are. We're going to prove that all of their treasonous years of betrayal will not be forgotten, because it's treason. What they did is treason. When they allowed millions of people to pour in through open borders from all over the world, they came. To me, that's treason. What they've done to our country is unthinkable.
Wow,
Okay.
you know what that sounds like to me, Greg?
What's that?
It sounds like they're about to reap what they sowed.
Well, okay, yeah, that's what I'm getting at. So with this real ID, they're going to have voter ID, bro. And if you don't have that real ID on your license, you're not going to be able to vote. And there's only one way that you get that real ID. You have to be an American citizen.
Well, and this is just my opinion, of course, but to me, anybody who would have a problem with that is somewhat treasonous. I mean, why would you want somebody who's not a citizen voting in your elections? Why would you want somebody who's not a citizen going into federal buildings? What purpose does that serve?
Exactly. And so it makes me think that this is the whole premise of this real ID. Okay, they're selling it to us as we're going to be in better control of terrorism and terrorist act to get this real ID. But Trump just said, come the midterms, we're going to start showing treason. So we have got these Trump telling Pam Bondi to investigate all of these law firms representing the Dominion elections. We've got this jagged information from Sidney Powell years ago, and then the bomb going off in Nashville. All of the things that led up to that. And now, Tulsi Gabbard this week, check this out.
Investigating, we have the best of the best going after this, election integrity being one of them. We have evidence of how these electronic voting systems have been vulnerable to hackers for a very long time and vulnerable to exploitation to manipulate the results of the votes being cast, which further drives forward your mandate to bring about paper ballots across the country so that voters can have faith in the integrity of our elections.
David. Sounds like to me that the heavens are going to be shaking, bro. Nations are going to be shaking. Does it not?
I 100% agree, and like you said, this things are shaking, man. It gives me chills when I think about it because you really we haven't seen this. We have not seen somebody stand up for the United States, stand up for what we know is right, and despite opposition, do what must be done. It's very very interesting, and I think we'll all be watching with great anticipation to see what happens. And I also think that's an interesting thing. We haven't heard from Pam Bondi or Kash Patel in a while, and maybe that's part of what Trump is getting at. You know, he's working directly with them and making sure things stay under wraps for now until the midterms. And wow, I'm very interested to see what comes.
Well, it's almost like, and I know that he's doing positive efforts with this tariff issue, but it's almost like the tariffs are the distraction to kind of back up what you said. Because think about this just this week, U.S. airstrikes have taken out intelligence chief over there in Yemen. He's a Houthi. We have Israel is escalating strikes in Lebanon. We have all the news talking about this stock market that's still crashing, and I'm going to come back to that one. And then Trump signs a bill to nullify and expand IRS crypto broker rule. China is outlawing missionary work, and Israel is threatening Iran. So we have a lot of things on the forefront that tariffs are even taking over the knowledge of that. But I want to get back to the stock market still crashing. All we see on the news is how bad Trump is and how bad the economy is and how bad. Let me take you back to Jen Psaki or Jen Psaki back under Biden's administration when that section of time in Biden's administration, the stock market dropped 1,100 points. Check this out.
The markets, does the president think it's a big deal that today the Dow Jones is down at one point more than 1,100 points?
Well, to start with, we focus on the trends in the economy, not any one day and any single indicator. Unlike his predecessor, the president does not look at the stock market as a means by which to judge the economy.
But you know what? She's 100% right. And when they try to apply this logic to Trump, it doesn't make sense because it's like you said, there you go. Jen Psaki said it. So why doesn't the same logic apply to Trump? Everything she said is true. The stock market is not a significant indicator for how well the economy is doing, and economists don't look at a day by day sheet. It's a over time sheet. So I 100% agree with what you're saying. It's ridiculous, the hypocrisy that we're seeing. It's insane.
That's right. Get back to Matthew 16. You know, the hypocrisy, the leaven, their rottenness, their fermentation, that which they cause to rise up, right? And this is exactly what that is. Biden did the same thing, but it was okay because we don't look at it on a day-to-day basis, man. It's an overall scheme and it's going to rise up. The stock market does not even play into our economy, but you let that happen under Trump, and we're going to be drinking water out of a hoof print, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
As my dad would always say, you're going to be drinking water out of a hoof print. You ever drank water out of a hoof print, David?
No, and I don't think I want to.
Well, yeah, you're from the young breed, man. You've never had to drink water from a hoof print.
No.
Oh, that's funny. Okay. I want to talk about another form of hypocrisy. The whole argument about Elon and Doge, because we're gonna dive off into Doge next here, Dave. But the whole Doge issue is the left is raising Cain because Elon was not elected. He wasn't elected, and that's why they want him out. So
you talk about hypocrisy. That's another case right there.
Exactly. Hypocrisy. And so we had last weekend, they had the April 5th protest where all these liberals got out and was protesting and all this.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a man on the street asking one of these liberal ladies if she liked Elon. And here's her response. And then he asked her, well, did you like Dr. Fauci?
To get out of our government. We didn't elect him. He needs to go. And
what do you think of Dr. Fauci?
I love Dr. Fauci.
Do you think we elected him?
He was appointed by our president.
Oh, man.
So it's okay for Dr. Fauci to be nominated by the president, but it's not okay for Elon to be nominated by the president. David?
Well, and even to further that point, the Doge team that Trump put together was essentially put together actually by Obama. It was something that Obama had done before that Trump rebranded into Doge. It was already a government system that existed. He didn't even have to create anything new. He just essentially gave him a new boss.
That's exactly right. And that's why they are unable to stop it, because it was created and Trump is using it under the guidelines of how it was created. Like you said, he just revamped it. And this is why they are in such an outrage. Well, the initial survey of unemployment insurance claims since 2020 found that thousands of people with future birth dates claimed benefits. The survey also indicated that thousands of supposedly very young and very old people had claimed benefits. And the Doge Post states that the survey found 24.5 thousand people over 115 years old claimed 59 million in benefits. 28,000 people between 1 and 5 years old claimed 254 million in benefits. and 9.7 thousand people with birth dates over 15 years in future claimed 69 million in benefits. So, in one case, someone with a birthday in the year 2154 claimed $41,000. The Fox News Digital reached out to the Department of Labor for comment. This is another incredible discovery by Doge team, finding nearly 400 million in fraudulent unemployed payments. Department of Labor Secretary Lori Chavez D. Reamer said in a statement, the Labor Department is committed to recovering Americans' stolen tax dollars and will catch these thieves and keep working to root out egregious fraud. Accountability is here. So we have Dave Bondi talking about this with the illegal aliens. Check this out.
I want people arrested, and by the end of this video, you will too. Please share this video with family, friends, and especially Democrats. We now have evidence that Joe Biden and the Democrats lied to the American people. We now have all of the receipts and evidence that they put millions and millions of illegal immigrants on Social Security at maximum capacity, more money than you're receiving. They put them on food stamps. They put them on Medicaid. They even allowed them to vote. Let's go ahead and react to this video together, and you'll see why I am so angry today.
And then you'll notice there's a strange trend here where how many Social Security numbers were issued? Do you want to?
Yeah, so let me tell you what happened here. We started at the top of the system.
I want to talk about a lot of it.
We started at the top of the system, mapping the whole system of Social Security to understand where all the fraud was. And there's a lot of great people there that showed us really a lot of ways. And so that came with a big list of stuff they're working on. You've heard some of that already, but this is what jumped out at us. When we saw these numbers, we're like, what is this? In 21, you see 270,000 people, goes all the way to 2.1 million in 24. These are non-citizens that are getting Social Security numbers.
Yeah, this is a mind-blowing chart.
Yeah, this literally blew us away. Like, we went there to find fraud, and we found this by accident.
Okay, so they're just trying to clean up Social Security. Democrats say Elon Musk is going to steal your money. These guys, they just go in to find the fraud. And what they find is millions of illegal immigrants purposely put on Social Security, maxed out, and then put into all of the different systems so that illegals could live off of your money, your family, your hard work.
And this isn't political, by the way. My parents are immigrants. Yeah, this country's been great to us. My brother and sister all born in Spain. I'm pro-legal immigration. This is not political. This is not political. This is about America and the future of America. And there are a lot of good people in the system that pointed us in this direction. I want to honor them right now, that work in the government today, who took risks to show us these numbers and tell us what's going on. Yeah. So I want to stop for a minute. I want to honor those people today. Very good people. Very good people. I have been from DC to Social Security offices to the border to track this down, and very good people have helped us along the way. I want to thank them.
Yeah. This
number, what this is when you come in the country, if you're illegal, there's a couple ways to come in. You come in through a port of entry, and you can tell them you're afraid. They'll give you an asylum case. You get an interview, then you get in. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to just go to the border. Literally, this happened. I talked to Border Patrol myself. Elon was there too. I went to Laredo, and I went to Bronzeville. Elon went to Eagle Pass. You walk up to a Border Patrol officer, and you tell them you want to come in. They have a couple of choices. They could charge you with a misdemeanor or a felony under 1325, or they can make it an administrative offense, like a parking ticket, basically.
So there you go, David. I mean, it's out in the open now. It's all coming out. So what say you?
What did he say there at the end? He could take administrative what?
Well, let me go to it. Let's see.
I went to Laredo. You walk up to a Border Patrol officer, and you tell them you want to come in. They have a couple of choices. They could charge you with a misdemeanor or a felony under 1325, or they can make it an administrative offense, like a parking ticket, basically.
They could arrest you, or they could just make it like a parking ticket.
Interesting. And so surely you have, either people that are getting incentivized through money or getting to keep their jobs, probably money, who choose to just write it off as a parking ticket, a slap on the wrist. If even that, who knows if they even have to go to the court? They probably won't even have to go to the court date, because how are you going to track them? Because they're an illegal immigrant.
Exactly. And that's the whole thing about it. See, and we know the reason for this invasion. Okay, I don't know if they were going to use them to attack us and bring us down, or if they
Voters.
thought, well, yeah, voters. But see, that failed on them too,
Mhm.
because the American people had had enough. Oh, interesting stuff. Well, David, uh, a lot of things have been talked about tonight, but getting back to Dan Bongino, when he said things are happening behind the scenes, even though they may not be appearing to be on the surface. I want to touch on something because we just had another plane crash in Florida yesterday, and I haven't really dove into who was on it yet. But the helicopter that did go down in the Hudson River a couple of days ago, I want to touch on that because there was a CEO that was on board that helicopter. Now, what makes this interesting is over the last, say, 6 months to a year, we have had 5 CEOs publicly get killed. The first one was this what was his name? Augustine Escobar. He's the one that went down in the helicopter. And what's interesting is the pilot of this helicopter was named Sean Johnson. He was 36. He was a former Navy SEAL. 18 minutes into the flight, he reported he needed more fuel, so he was turning around. That's when the helicopter just fell apart. And then again, it was Augustine Escobar who was the CEO in the helicopter, and he is the CEO of rail infrastructure of Siemens Mobility. His wife was also on board with their kids, but his wife was the global commercialization manager at Siemens Energy. And they were currently, now I don't know if this has anything to do with it or not, but they were currently in a legal battle with VMware over software licensing. Broadcom owned vendor claimed that Siemens AG requested support services for products that it never purchased. Now, again, I don't know if that legal battle has anything to do with this or not, but what's important here is that he is a CEO that perished in this crash. So let's go back. Over in Sicily, Italy, a short time ago, we had that CEO that died on that luxury yacht. And then we had Isaac, that fashion CEO, who fell off a cliff, who was 71, and he falls off a cliff. And then we have a CEO who was a game designer. You might know this. He died. He was killed by a fire. And then we had that United Healthcare CEO who got shot by that Lucci or whatever his name was. So we've had about 5 CEOs die here lately, man. What say you about that?
Well, I'm not really sure. And I'm somebody who, if I don't have necessarily a clear picture in my mind of something that I think is going on, I won't really throw out like a lot of guesses, because at the end of the day, like, we've got to remember that people's lives, tragically ended in all of these situations, and families are suffering and grieving their loss. So, prayers go out to those families first and foremost, because good Lord, I don't know if I would want to fly anywhere right now on anything at all. And I'm not even, I'm not an important person. I'm just a regular old guy, and I'm honestly fearful that something would happen. But as possibly talking about what could be going on with these CEOs, with the United Healthcare CEO, I think we all know why that happened. More than likely, he had somebody in his family who needed treatment and got denied and probably died, and then he got his revenge. That was probably that was the logic in his thinking there. Now, obviously, that was a bad thing to do. Nobody should ever do that, and hopefully he finds God. But as far as these other CEOs, I have seen a lot of attention being thrown at this situation with the Hudson River case, because it is interesting to me that a pilot would not check how much gas is in his plane before he takes off / helicopter. And what that tells me, now he was what you said, Navy SEAL, correct? So to me, he has sufficient training, more than sufficient training, and he's probably flown for a lot of time. He knows how to check a fuel gauge, okay? So more than likely, something was tampered with. Now, I'm not going to say that it was, and this is just my opinion. More than likely, that tells me something was tampered with, just being a person who works in a field. I work in a somewhat trade job. I'm a mechanic. I'm a diesel mechanic. So if I go to change a tire, you better believe I'm making sure that jack that I'm using is properly placed underneath that axle so that it's not going anywhere. And I will double and triple check, because I'm not touching that tire until I know that it's certain. And surely this person who was caring for this family, he had their lives in his hands as the pilot. Surely he had the forethought and foresight to check a dial on his dash in his helicopter. So to me, that tells me there has to be something going on. Either he didn't check for a gas leak, he had just filled it up, didn't check for a gas leak, that's possible, or there was foul play. Now, why would there be foul play? That's the part that I don't have an answer for right now, and I can't really throw anything out there, because I don't know the people who I know nothing about the people who tragically lost their lives in this plane crash. But like I said, prayers go out to the families and everybody who's suffering, and we hope that they can get through this.
Yeah, I do too, and I hate to hear that, but yeah, that is kind of odd that he didn't check the fuel, and the helicopter did fall apart. I mean, you never know. I mean, they may have mechanics like we have where I work. Stuff like that just happens, you know?
Right. Right.
Hey, I love you, Dave.
Right. Yeah, good recovery, bro.
No, I like picking at old Dave, man. Yeah, I'm very proud of this young man. He's like, I remember when we first met, he thought I was crazier than a football bat, and here he is sitting on the front porch. I love it.
Well, I didn't
David,
say you
tell
weren't crazy.
I hear you. Hey, tell everybody where you can be found all over the web, brother. You got some good stuff.
Well, thank you. Well, guys, I do a little bit of all kinds of stuff. I do political shows and I do gaming shows. Now, I assume most of this crowd does not have interest in my gaming stuff. I'll throw it in at the end in case you do want to check it out. But if you want to find me talking about politics, uploading clips of different politicians and compilations, I recently uploaded one of Jasmine Crockett and her really bad take on foreign policy and why homes are costing what they cost. It's a funny video. Check it out if you want. It is Why Try Blaze Politics on YouTube. Why Try Blaze Politics. If you type in Why Try Blaze without the politics, you're going to find my gaming channel. And hey, drop me a follow over there and check me out if you want to show some support. But for this, I believe this general audience is going to have more interest in the political side. And we do upload at least semi-daily, sometimes daily. We've already got 100 videos uploaded, and we've only started doing it for about 2 months now. So lots of content to go check out, lots of videos to go look at. And so yeah, now if you want to see the other gaming stuff, I am on Twitch and Kick. Same name, Why Try Blaze, on every platform. You'll find me whether it's you type in the capital or not. And anybody who shows me support, thank you guys. And to everybody who said that they enjoyed my presence on the last episode, thank you. That means a lot to me, especially as a young, aspiring content creator. And it every little bit helps because at the beginning stages, you don't get a lot of audience, and getting the push from Greg has really helped me continue to do what I do and continue to help me have confidence and, like I said, just continue what I'm doing. So thank you, Greg, and thank you to all the listeners to the Smokehouse Studios show. And if you want me to come back, make sure you tell Greg, because I'd love to be back. I enjoy this a lot.
Oh yeah, it's good stuff. Oh, they're gonna want you back. I can guarantee you this. This show was a good one, brother. Um, Here's what I want to close with. Haggai at the close of chapter 2, he has a blessing for a defiled people. Okay. And this is what we are. We have proven it in a court of law. David and I both prove we are a defiled people. Not only because we're not paying attention to the building of God's house, but we are not sharpening the blade that God has possessed us with to be able to battle these things that we are coming up against. So we've learned a lot in this program. And the Dilly Mean team has put out an amazing close to kind of summarize everything that we have been enduring. And after this, David, I'll share the blessings for the defiled people.
A story about one of the greatest psyops in history. The psyop that you deserve less and less every year, and that you should work harder and harder for less and less. The psyop that to be broke was the American way. The psyop that you should be lucky to pay your bills. The psyop that it's normal for prices to go up every year, forever. The psyop that it's normal to pay taxes. When you're born, death and taxes are the only certainty they would tell you. The psyop that you need to make $80,000 a year to take care of your family, then $100,000, and then $150,000. Now they tell you both you and your wife need to work to achieve financial freedom. So you hire the nannies, you hired the babysitters, you leave your community, you just don't have time for them anymore. Because you and your wife embarked on individual careers. These careers that took you away from your kids, your spouse, your home, your community, and they told you this was normal. It's totally normal to spend 2/3 of your time away from your family. It's normal to fight and get divorced, and it has nothing to do with the economic decisions and policies made by the government. None of it was normal. It was all nefarious, and it chipped away at what it meant to be an American. It chipped away at your self-esteem. It chipped away at your marriage, at your family, until you looked up and one day no one was married anymore. No one was succeeding unless they were heavily leveraged. One day you woke up and realized you don't recognize the world around you. Until Trump. President Trump came along and said, "This is your country, and that's your money." And he wouldn't back down. All the people that were destroying you came out and spoke against him. They went to great lengths to undermine his agenda. When President Trump hit his stride in 2019, they released a biological weapon that was the largest psyop in global history. COVID. They ran the scamdemic. They extorted trillions of dollars out of your economy. Then they stole your election overtly, hijacked your democracy, put up barbed wire fencing around your capital, and told you it was normal. During the next 4 years, they would unleash an invasion the likes of which no nation had ever seen. Hundreds of thousands, if not millions of illegals poured in the United States of America and began gobbling up whatever remaining resources were in existence. You were deemed a domestic terrorist by those in power. They surveilled your phones, your computers. They surveilled your lives, but it wasn't enough to stop Donald Trump. When they couldn't undermine his campaign through the courts and lawfare, they eventually tried to kill him again and again and again, until that fateful day in November when President Trump and America reclaimed their sovereignty. With him, he brought the richest man on the planet for free, named Elon Musk. They then began uncovering and publicizing all of fraud, theft, waste, and abuse of the American taxpayer. They have threatened him. They have threatened his family. Subversion is all they have left. Infiltration is all they have left. Their funding is drying up. This is your Liberation Day.
All right, David, does that pretty much sum it up?
Absolutely. That's exactly why Donald Trump won the popular vote. That hasn't been done in 20 elections, and the last time it was a Republican was even longer than that, I believe. So there's a reason that he won the popular vote, and America spoke.
Amen. Folks, we're here because we allowed ourselves to be here. Had we not have been so focused on the buildings of our houses and keeping up with the Joneses, if we had been focused on the Lord's house and building up his house, we would not be where we are today. But we have hope. And as he had Haggai prophesy to the people, he said in verse 17 that I smote you with blasting and with mildew and with hail in all the labors of your hands, yet ye turned not to me, saith the Lord. So all these things that we have been enduring was because it was the Lord trying to get us to turn around and follow him. And yet we did not turn and follow him. And so it kept getting worse and worse. We started getting less and less money for more and more labor. He says, consider now from this day and upward, from the 4 and the 20th day of the 9th month, even for the day that the foundation of the Lord's temple was laid, consider it. He asked a question. He said, is the seed yet still in the barn? Let me say that again. God tells us, I smote you with blasting and with mildew and with hail and with labors of your hands, yet you did not return to me, saith the Lord. And then Haggai said, you consider what I'm saying right here, standing right here on this place. Basically saying, if you don't believe me that God is telling you this is why your economy the way it is. This is why your crops are not growing. This is why all these things are happening. And then in chapter 2, he says, in this latter house, to the future time, to us today, I have smote you with blasting, with mildew, with hail, all the labors of your hands. I have given you terrible things, and yet you don't return to me. And Haggai was basically saying, so if you don't believe, that's what the Lord is saying. You remember what I said from this day upward and forth on the 29th day. He even mentioned the day. You remember this day that I said this. Is the seed yet still in the barn? Now, what's that mean? Well, that would be like us saying, I'm telling you what happened. I'm telling you this. And if you don't believe me, you just remember that there's going to be a truck that's going to be driving off a cliff and it's going to, blah, blah, blah. You see what I'm saying? And then when you see that truck go off the cliff, you're like, oh my gosh, that guy was right. So the reason that we are in this state is because we have stopped building on the temple of God and we have focused more on trying to build our temple our way. When Proverbs says, do not rely upon your own understanding, trust in the Lord. Our show last week, ask and it shall be given. But you have to ask in belief, in faith, and it will be given. Folks, we need to come together now. Now that all this is coming to fruition, now that we see the heavens shaking, the earth shaking, everything that Haggai prophesied happening, we have to believe it because he asked, are the seeds yet still in the barn? And interestingly enough, back in 2013, archaeologists in Israel, they were doing some excavating and they came across this area and they had uncovered what looked like a roof. And they spent years slowly excavating and found out that it was a palace. It was David's palace, King David's palace. And strangely enough, this palace was in the exact location that Haggai was in when he was speaking to the people at this time. And as these archaeologists in 2013 began to start excavating this palace, they knew the geograph location of everything of David's palace and knew that there had to be a barn adjacent to this palace. So they continued to excavate and they found this barn. They called it a royal storage room, but it was a barn. And they began to start excavating this barn. And in 2013, when they finally had everything excavated and they were going in these places and looking at what was in there, that barn was the only site in 2013 that had organic material that was in it that was found. The only thing they found in that barn was olive seeds. And that was carbon dated. It was carbon 14 dated back to the period of this time. Israel Antiquities Authority spokesman Yoli Schwartz told the Times of Israel. In 2013, they found seeds in the barn in the exact location where Haggai was saying everything that we shared on the show today. They found those seeds in 2013, telling us that everything that Haggai said was true, even to the point that we found the seeds in the barn. So getting back to the mower's analogy that we had shared at the beginning of the show in Haggai chapter 1, the mower does not waste time when he stops to sharpen his blade. David, I'll give you the closing comments, brother.
Well, I just want to say that, like everything I said earlier, thank you guys for having me. I enjoy being on here, and I'd love to come back. And just to further what you're saying, the seeds were still in the barn. So, like you were saying earlier, we're excited to see the greatness that we're promised, and we're ready to essentially reap what we have been sowing, not only the last 4 years, but even, if you want to take a step back and say, from the time that you first started going to church as a little boy or girl, that's where it started. And the Lord is going to bless us. So those are my closing comments. Thank you guys for having me again.
All right, brother. Well, that kind of does it, folks. That's it in a nutshell. Hey, you want to kick this thing into overdrive? Quit building on your houses and let's start building on the house of God. All right, Brother Dave. Well, I'm going to tell you something there, hero. I'm on vacation next week.
Oh, heck yeah.
So you won't be seeing this voluptuous face at all.
Oh, all right. I'll miss it.
Well, I do have a face for radio. But anyway, I'm looking forward to a good vacation. Going to try to do a little fishing if the river cooperates. But, if not, that's all right. I can find something else to do. So, folks, that's it. That's it in a nutshell, man. Even Amos chapter 4 talks about, it's going to rain in one area and be dry in the other, and yet you still don't return to me. Crops will grow one area and not in the other. We got to return, folks. Speed this up. Lord willing, the creeks don't rise. See you next weekend. Bye-bye.
Smokehouse. To talk with Smokehouse, dial 712-770-3857. That number once again is 712-770-3857. Then dial the access code 252-380, followed by the pound sign. and you will be placed in the queue.
Call in and join the show.
SmokehouseStudios.net. God is among us. The door to the ark is slamming shut.
All right, Brother Dave, we are off the air.
Sorry, dude. Sorry, I got a little distracted there at the end. My cat, she jumped on my desk and knocked over all kinds of stuff, and I realized you said my name, and I had to come back. So sorry.
Hey, man, I couldn't even tell.
Oh, okay, cool. I was like, oh God, I hope, because I had my mic muted, and I was like, I hope nobody heard that. But all right, cool. I'm glad you didn't. I'm glad it wasn't obvious.
No, man, that was an awesome show, dude. What'd you think?
Dude, I did too. I thought it was better than our first one, actually.
Oh, yeah, dude, that was awesome.
I hope people enjoy that, man, because